Hello and welcome to today's special launch event, Do More with Your Data, introducing Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP. Thank you so much for joining us for this special launch. This event is possible with special thanks to our friends at AWS and NetApp. Before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about the event. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator along with Scott D. Lowe. We encourage your questions about this exciting new solution. You can post those questions there in the questions box of your audience console. We also have a number of handouts available for download, special resources, and links to the AWS Fsx for ONTAP solution. So make sure that you check those out in the handouts tab. Throughout the webinar today, we'll be announcing the winners of our 4 Amazon $300 gift cards. That's $1,200 in Amazon gift cards, plus a bonus at the end of the event. We'll be announcing the winner of the Amazon $500 AWS service credit. So make sure that you stay tuned for those drawings. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawings have already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found there in the handouts tab. Additionally, we have a best question prize for a $50 Amazon gift card. Of course, you have to ask a question to be entered into the prize drawing and meet the Actual Tech Media prize policy. And with that, I'm excited to introduce you to Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP.
World's most broadly adopted cloud. Enterprise-grade features were in high demand for mission-critical applications. Only one storage operating system could save the day. Say hello to my little friend. Meet Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP. This is the way. By combining the data management capabilities of NetApp ONTAP with the scalability and agility of AWS, only Amazon Fsx for ONTAP gives you the ability to launch and run file storage with support for Linux, Windows, and iSCSI workloads. Welcome to the party, pal. With just a few clicks, Grasshopper, you can migrate applications to AWS, get real-time data protection, or automatically tier data to reduce costs. Do you feel the need? The need for speed? You can combine infrastructure as a code and flexible compute, bursting to create, clone, and replicate data at will. But there can be only one. So, do you feel lucky, punk? Inconceivable. You had me at hello. Unlike a box of chocolates, with ONTAP, you know exactly what you're gonna get. Now showing today on your AWS console. Extend enterprise grade to enterprise great.
And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Andy Krudge, Head of Product for Fsx for ONTAP at AWS. Andy, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar series. My name is Andy Krudge, and I lead the product team for Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP. In this webinar, I'm going to be giving you a quick overview of this service that we launched just earlier this month on September 2nd. So Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP is a service within the Amazon Fsx family of services. And with Amazon Fsx, what we're looking to do is to make it easy for customers to launch, run, and scale feature-rich and highly performant file systems on AWS with just a few clicks. And our goal from a product perspective is we've talked to a lot of customers over the last several years, many of whom have built their workflows, their applications, their IT infrastructure around a series of popular file system technologies. And with Amazon Fsx, what we're doing is we want to make it easy for customers who've run applications on top of popular file systems to be able to migrate these applications and run them in AWS by offering customers fully managed versions of these popular file systems with all of the features, capabilities, and performance profiles that customers love and use about the file system technologies that they use today. And as an AWS service, what we're doing with Fsx is we're deploying these popular file system technologies on top of the latest AWS compute, disk, and networking technologies to provide customers with a combination of all these features that are built into popular file systems with ever-increasing performance and capabilities that AWS is constantly developing as well. Another thing that Amazon Fsx provides is a broad range of service integrations with AWS services that make it easy to process, access, protect, analyze the data that you have. A big part of what customers tell us they're excited about when they're looking to move their applications and data over to AWS is the ability for them to do more with their data in the cloud. Process their data with machine learning applications or build containerized applications. And with Fsx, customers can now take advantage of all of these AWS services to run their applications and manage their data. So we launched Amazon Fsx about 3 years ago at reInvent 2018. And when we launched the service, we had two file system types: Amazon Fsx for Windows File Server, which is based on Windows Server technology, and Amazon Fsx for Lustre, which Lustre is a high-performance, compute-optimized file system technology. So our third and newest Amazon Fsx file system type is Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, which, as I mentioned earlier, we launched earlier this month on September 2nd. So what is this new service? What we're looking to do, just like with our other Fsx file system types, is to provide customers with the full feature set, capabilities, and performance profile, in this case, of NetApp ONTAP on AWS. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, so NetApp is a company that's been building storage solutions for nearly 30 years, and ONTAP is their storage software that provides a wide range of data management capabilities and features that make it easy and fast to run, deploy, and manage data. And so with Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, what we're providing is a complete NetApp ONTAP file system on AWS with all of the simplicity, agility, and scalability benefits that customers have come to enjoy from the managed services that we offer in the cloud. Put differently, we're looking to offer customers the best of both worlds: a complete ONTAP experience, as well from a feature set, from a performance capability perspective, along with a complete AWS experience where you can deploy a file system in minutes and easily scale your data with just a few clicks. So some of the use cases that we see customers using the product for and that we built the product around, first and foremost, I mentioned customers very often are migrating their data to AWS. And with this service, by offering a complete NetApp ONTAP file system, again, with support for ONTAP's rich capabilities, we're making it easy for customers who are looking to migrate to AWS for them to be able to do so without having to reinvent how they manage their data or how they manage their storage. We also have talked to a lot of customers who are running NetApp ONTAP on-premises today, and they have on-premises workloads or applications that they want to continue running on-premises. And so for these customers, with Fsx for ONTAP, we actually support NetApp's replication technologies like SnapMirror and SnapVault that make it easy for customers who want to maintain their primary copy of their data on-premises to use Fsx as a disaster recovery site for improved business continuity. So customers can easily configure Fsx as a backup of their data, even if they're looking to maintain the primary copy of their data on premises. And lastly, one of the really exciting things that we see with this service is by offering ONTAP and all of ONTAP's rich capabilities as part of a fully managed AWS service, what we're enabling end users to do and data scientists to do is to be able to take advantage of ONTAP's capabilities by just clicking a few buttons and getting started, without having to become experts in how to set up and manage and run ONTAP. Put differently, we're able to provide ONTAP's capabilities to a broad set of users who can take advantage of these really cool features without having to know and learn ONTAP concepts to do so. So with this service, I mentioned earlier that we're looking to offer the best of both worlds. And one example of what this means is from a manageability perspective. We talk to a lot of customers who are existing AWS users and some of them who are existing NetApp users. And with this service, you can use both AWS native management tools and APIs to manage your data. You can use the AWS console, the AWS CLI, or the Amazon FSx API and SDKs. And you can also, in addition, use NetApp's management tools to manage your data. So this is NetApp Cloud Manager, for example, or just directly using ONTAP's rich CLI and API. This is an and condition. File systems, Amazon FSx file systems are accessible, and you can manage them using both AWS native tools as well as NetApp management tools, making it easy for you to use whichever tool set and feature set is most easiest for you to use and it's most familiar for you. From an accessibility perspective, file systems are accessible over the industry standard NFS, SMB, and iSCSI protocols. And so what this means is if each file system is deployed within an AWS virtual private cloud or VPC, and because we support industry standard protocols, you can access your data easily from a bunch of different AWS services running in your VPC that are running either Linux, Windows, or Mac OS clients. Examples of these services include EC2, Amazon ECS, EKS, as well as AppStream 2.0 workspaces and VMware Cloud on AWS. Customers can also access their data from peered VPCs. So these are other VPCs either in the same region or even in different AWS regions using AWS Transit Gateway. And we also support access from on-premises clients and workstations using AWS Direct Connect and VPN. I mentioned earlier that Amazon FSx is a fully managed service. And so I wanted to talk through a little bit about what that means. So in this diagram that you see here, you can see this is a typical deployment that a customer may have. And on the bottom of this diagram is a high-level depiction of what an Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP file system looks like. Each file system is designed to be highly available and highly durable across multiple AWS availability zones. And what this means is each file system is comprised of multiple file servers that are deployed in different AZs, and each file server has its own redundant copy of your data. Any data that you write to Amazon FSx is automatically and synchronously replicated from one AZ to the other to ensure that you have a durable copy of all of your data in multiple AZs at all times. At any given point in time, one of these two file servers is serving as your active file server. As you can see in the diagram right now, the file server in AZ1 on the left is active, and all the clients accessing my data are automatically routed to this file server when they go to mount FSx. Let's say, for the sake of example, there's a hardware failure with the file server in AZ1. What would happen in this case is within seconds, Amazon FSx will automatically fail over from one AZ to the other. And also all of the clients that you have that are accessing your data will automatically fail over along with it. This is done automatically without any need for you to mount or remount your data, and is transparent to applications. This failover occurs without IO errors. It's really just a brief pause, and afterwards your applications can continue reading and writing data as if a failover never happened. I mentioned that Amazon FSx is a managed service. And so a big part of what this means is, with FSx, you can go to the Amazon AWS console and deploy a file system with just a few clicks. Amazon FSx manages standing up all of the hardware and software associated with your file system, patching it, continuously updating it, backing it up. And in addition, we're also continuously monitoring the hardware and software powering your file system. And in the event that there is a failure, we'll automatically replace any failed infrastructure components. And so in this example, if there were to be an actual file server failure on a particular file system, within minutes, Amazon FSx will automatically detect this, will automatically replace that file server, and the file system and your clients will automatically fail back from one AZ to the other. Again, this is just as transparently as the initial failover from AZ1 to AZ2. Similarly, all of your data in Amazon FSx is replicated both within an AZ and across AZs so that you don't have to worry about managing individual disk failures. We also offer a number of additional data protection features like snapshots, which make it easy for end users to right-click on a file and view a previous version of that particular file, and self-service restore if they accidentally deleted a file or modified a file and they didn't mean to do so. We also offer a couple of different backup and disastery recovery capabilities. I won't go into these in too much detail because we actually have a webinar later today that's going to be diving into some of the backup and disaster recovery capabilities that we have in more depth. But at a high level, we offer both a native built-in backups capability, and we also support cross-region replication and backup of data using NetApp SnapMirror and SnapVault. From a performance perspective, each file system is designed to scale to multiple gigabytes per second of throughput, up to hundreds of thousands of IOPS, and all of this with consistent sub-millisecond latencies. One of the other exciting things is when you go to provision a file system, you can actually provision your performance independently from your storage so that you can cost optimize for the exact performance and capacity that you need. Now, along with performance comes total cost of ownership. With Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, we have two storage tiers. We have a high performance SSD storage tier, and we also have a capacity pool storage tier that's fully elastic, meaning it automatically grows and shrinks with the data you tier to it. And it's cost optimized for infrequently accessed data. Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP automatically tiers your data from SSD storage to capacity pool storage and back, depending on your access patterns. Typically, a typical workload will have about 20% of data that's hot or actively accessed, 80% of data that's cold. And Fsx for NetApp ONTAP leverages ONTAP's rich tiering capabilities and intelligence to automatically tier your data between these two tiers based on your access patterns. And what this enables you to do is to get essentially SSD level performance for your entire data set, even if only a fraction of your data is actually stored on SSDs at a given time. We also fully support NetApp's storage efficiency features, such as data compression, deduplication, and compaction that reduce the amount of physical space your data is required to take up, which further saves you money. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, you can also independently provision storage and performance. Putting some of these capabilities into context, so I'm going to go through a quick example of 100 terabytes of data, 20% hot, 80% cold, and with typical savings from compression and deduplication. So if I start with 100 terabytes of data, with data tiering, you can have 20 terabytes on SSD, 80 terabytes in capacity pool storage. And with compression, this reduces down to about a third or a half of the size to actually store your data on physical storage. Putting this all together, the TCO of this deployment, again, a pretty typical deployment, comes down to about 4.2 cents per gigabyte per month. And this is for multi-AZ storage that's highly available and replicated across multiple AZs, that is fully managed by AWS and supports NetApp's rich data management capabilities. The last thing I want to cover really quickly is some of the security capabilities of the service. So first and foremost, all data is encrypted at rest on Amazon Fsx, and we also support encryption in transit. You can use AWS VPC security groups and IAM to control which clients and which users can access and manage your data. And Amazon Fsx has a broad range of certifications that you will also see with Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP. Lastly, we support a number of access control and auditing capabilities, such as native integration with your organization's Active Directory for user authentication. We also support ONTAP's file access auditing capabilities, as well as antivirus capabilities, so that you can further protect and log access to your data. And lastly, we also are integrated with AWS CloudTrail so that you can log API calls and ONTAP administrative commands to your file system. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. I know we have an exciting day ahead of us, and there are a couple other sessions that are going to be going on to share some even more details about the service, some of the key capabilities and some of the features that we're particularly excited to offer with the service. Thank you.
Great presentation, Andy. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to our next speaker on the event today, our guest speaker, Mr. Scott Delow, CEO and co-founder of Actual Tech Media. Scott, take it away.
I'm Scott Lowe with Actual Tech Media, and thank you for joining me for this Analyst Perspective, AWS FSx for NetApp ONTAP. During this presentation, I'll provide you with some information about the AWS FSx for NetApp ONTAP service, as well as some of my thoughts on why this deployment can be critical for your organization. Let's start with discussing some common operational needs that we see in the market today. We see businesses around the world having all kinds of emerging needs thanks to the advent of cloud and the continuing expansion of cloud and cloud services, as well as all of the services and products that surround cloud. There's a conglomeration of operational needs that have emerged. First, most organizations are not just looking to move to the cloud. They've already started doing that. But many have yet to move what we would consider mission-critical enterprise-class applications to the cloud for myriad reasons. We're going to talk about some of those during this presentation. So today, they're looking for ways they can move these mission-critical applications to the cloud in a seamless way. Part of that seamlessness comes from the fact that they have deployed these applications on premises using workflows that are really critical to that service's operation. So they deploy these services locally because they're using features of their storage system, for example, that they can't live without for a particular workload or a particular use case, or because of certain integrations they have in place. So there's a need for more robust enterprise-grade storage features in cloud environments that companies like NetApp with ONTAP provide. And to my earlier point, organizations want to retain existing workflows that might rely on local ONTAP APIs. We think about infrastructure as code. We think about programmable infrastructure. We think about software deployments that are leveraging these APIs and SDKs and everything else out there that we don't want to lose, because that creates not a disaster, but it creates a significant risk when organizations start to break workflows in their quest to move operations to the cloud. In addition, they want the flexibility to manage from wherever. They want to manage from cloud consoles and also from familiar on-premises consoles. And what they're really looking for is a truly seamless integration between on-premises environments and cloud-based infrastructure. Over the years, we've seen a lot of vendors deploy services into AWS via the AWS Marketplace, including NetApp, and I'll talk to that shortly. And probably most importantly today, we're looking for services that can do all of this while helping us maintain state-of-the-art data protection capabilities. Obviously, the ability to recover from a disaster is really table stakes. You can't not do that today. It's just not feasible, and investors would run and probably do horrible things to organizations that didn't have good data protection capabilities. We have to think about things like ransomware and just typical, user error or disasters that actually strike. So we have to think about all of those things in terms of the needs that are coming together. Let's go a little bit deeper and talk about some of the clear business drivers that are driving change today. As I mentioned, we have substantial and mission-critical applications that organizations would like to migrate to the cloud. A lot of this has happened as organizations have been forced to go remote. They're finding out that this is feasible, and they're looking for ways they can more easily support these environments. And it's not just that. We also have these far-flung applications that we need to be able to support wherever they happen to live, wherever the users of those applications happen to live. And cloud is a natural place to do that. But there's also a desire by organizations to leverage emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning-based services. Now, this is all feasible on premises. You can deploy these things on your own. You can buy SaaS services that will do some of this. But the challenge is we have to still figure out how to integrate all of the stuff that we're deploying. And so when we think about a local NetApp environment, we might want to find an AI service that we can then hook into that so we can start to deploy or start to create workloads that leverage that service. But if we think about a native cloud experience, now AWS has these kinds of capabilities already. You can turn them on in your AWS account. What if you could do that and still have the total experience of NetApp ONTAP and so all of the benefits that it provides? Through all of this, organizations, regardless of where infrastructure lives, are looking for ways to optimize cost based on consumption. This was the original cloud mantra. We can go to a consumption-based model, darn it. We don't have to worry about buying all this upfront hardware. We don't have to worry about all of the proofs of concept. We don't have to worry about the personnel time it's going to take to get stuff deployed, the lead time from procurement to get it ordered and delivered. We can basically start right now to make things happen. And that goes to my next point here, which is faster time to value for transformation initiatives. So we get a consumption-based model that we can turn on today. And so that means we can start actually getting benefit from these services immediately. And all of this really has to have strong storage as an underpinning. And that's where we're going to talk about NetApp in just a second. I want to talk about the last point here, which is decoupling IT ops from DevOps wherever we can possibly do that. Obviously, storage is a cornerstone element no matter where you're operating workloads. I mean, even if you're just deploying something in the cloud, storage is really important. And it requires a lot of thought. And over the last decades, thousands of organizations around the world have deployed NetApp with ONTAP for lots of reasons. And in recent years, NetApp has talked about this idea of a data fabric, where you can have workloads running anywhere. They have all kinds of services that operate under this data fabric umbrella. I'm not going to get into the data fabric because there's lots of resources out there on the internet, but I want to talk about the latest foray NetApp is taking to bring ONTAP to an even broader set of customers than it could before. So AWS Fsx for NetApp ONTAP is a cloud-native service that you procure directly via AWS. There's no minimum commitment or upfront hardware cost, just as you expect with the model. You buy this from AWS, not from NetApp. The service enables hybrid workflows that can span on-premises and cloud environments. And what this means is that basically they look exactly the same on both sides. They can integrate very deeply. So your workflows you already have on an on-premises side of the equation, you can migrate to the cloud very easily, no changes to applications. That's probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks organizations see as they try to move workloads to the cloud, is there's this idea that we're going to have to modify applications for it to work, or modify the stuff that surrounds applications, the support services that make that application work. With AWS Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, you don't have to do that. This is all your stuff that you have in place is still going to continue to work. And there's a broad swath of use cases here, including file shares, robust database support, things like SQL Server and Oracle, analytics, media, and a lot more. NetApp ONTAP has proven to be a very, very robust general purpose system for years, and it provides a lot of niche services as well. So it's a fantastic solution across all kinds of workload needs in lots of organizations. Now, obviously, as an underpinning, storage has to remain highly available. And Amazon's got lots of different services that you can have different availability commitments behind. But when we see NetApp Fsx for NetApp ONTAP is deployed natively in multi-zone to ensure high availability, and it's backed by an SLA that Amazon publishes on their website. And if you want even more, you can have cross-region replication provided by NetApp SnapMirror. So just because AWS is providing this service, the services you've come to understand and know and love in ONTAP are still available. They're all as consumable via AWS Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, and you can use them in your deployment. This is where I think is going to be the really key thing here for FSxN. First of all, it's not just a storage management service embedded inside cloud constructs. This is a cloud-native file solution that enables robust hybrid scenarios. So it integrates across the enterprise, and this is a true hybrid cloud solution. Now, it's with a native cloud solution on one end and on-premises on the other. And as I mentioned, it supports all of your existing workloads. So if you have Active Directory integrations for Windows environments, you can continue to use those. If you've got scripts that use the ONTAP API, you can continue to use those. But the third point here is the one that I think is really cool. First of all, there already are a number of broad integrations from AWS, other AWS services in the catalog, and there's more coming every day. So if you want to have a system that has wired input to all of these other AWS services without having to mess around, this is going to be transformative for your organization. You want to have that AI ML service up and running quickly? Well, you can do that with FSxN. So you can start to leverage, if it's not here now, it will be at some point, all of the AWS service catalog that with additional capabilities, so you can accelerate your organization's business even faster than you can do by trying to go it alone and piece together parts from a whole bunch of different places. And I'm going to make this quick and wrap up. So first of all, what do we have here? As I mentioned, this is a truly hybrid cloud managed from either end. You can use the tools you're already familiar with, or you can use the AWS console directly. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. This enables you to continue using your existing processes even when migrating mission-critical applications to the cloud. You'll get a seamless integration with other AWS services to accelerate new workload development. And if those integrations don't exist yet today, they will in the future. This is a real melding of the cloud consumption model with enterprise-class capabilities in one place. One of the ways I think about this is that if you buy NetApp traditionally, you're going to buy an array, and you have software that runs on that array. And when you buy the array, you have to go buy the hardware, wait for it to come in. You have to rack and stack and cable and all that good stuff that goes along with deploying the software. With this, the hardware is essentially out of the equation. You're deploying the hardware inside AWS, and then you can immediately start using this. I believe that from a business perspective, FSxN is going to be revolutionary for a lot of organizations that are already using NetApp ONTAP and ones that would like to be able to have the capability that ONTAP provides, while also being able to leverage other cloud services in a seamless way. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's presentation.
All right, excellent presentation. Thank you, Scott Lowe. Let's go ahead and now bring up a poll for our audience. The poll that's on the screen is, what are your primary workloads? And of course, there are many different choices here for workloads. So feel free to select more than one. I'm sure you have more than one workload. If you don't see the poll, try to refresh on your web browser, but feel free to select the workload that corresponds to you and your company, and we do appreciate your feedback on this. Scott, great presentation. I did want to ask you a couple questions about it, though. One of the questions that came in here from the audience is they're asking, do you think that AWS FSx for ONTAP will be ideal not only for existing NetApp customers, but also for customers who have never used perhaps on NetApp before at all?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is absolutely both. I mean, for existing customers, there are some clear and compelling capabilities that FSx for NetApp ONTAP brings to bear, particularly the ability to, we use the term seamless, so we throw it around a lot. But this is truly a seamless integration between an on-prem and a cloud-native environment. So you can deploy FSx for a NetApp ONTAP and integrate it with your on-premises environment very easily. And as I mentioned in my presentation, you enable a lot in the way of maintaining existing workflows, and that's part of that whole seamless equation that I think is so important for a lot of organizations. For new customers, absolutely as well. You get an enterprise-class storage system in the cloud. NetApp is known and loved for a lot of good reasons. It brings a lot of capabilities to bear that trying to piece it together otherwise can be really difficult and, expensive and complex. By deploying, AWS FSx for NetApp ONTAP, new customers are going to get those capabilities with a mouse click, and I don't think that can be overstated. That's really critical for organizations looking to have enterprise-class capabilities with the cloud. And it's not just about the hardware and the software. It's about the workflows that can result from that. So when we think about infrastructure as code, we think about DevOps environments. We get some incredible capabilities that ONTAP brings to bear inside AWS as a native service.
Absolutely, yeah. And then another question here that I see as kind of a common theme from the audience. They're asking, what sort of applications do you see that will be ideal for AWS FSx for ONTAP?
There's going to be a broad swath of applications here, from general purpose to file storage and even block storage, because FSx for NetApp ONTAP enables SMB, NFS, and iSCSI workloads. We have 2 file systems and 1 block storage solution, all with 1 service. So really, when you think about the kind of workloads that enables, it's pretty broad. And one of the big workloads will be databases. Another one will be analytics. And when we start thinking about even things like those advanced applications like artificial intelligence and machine learning apps, there's going to be a lot of capabilities that get brought to bear there.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have here for our little chat. We'll be back later to chat and discuss other audience questions. But for now, it's time to announce our first Amazon $300 gift card. This is going out to Judah Davis from Texas. Congratulations. A lot more gift cards as well later in the event will be announced. But now let's go ahead and move on to our next presentation here. This is a panel discussion, and I'm excited now to bring in our expert presenters. Welcome Edward Name, General Manager at AWS, Ronan Schwartz, Senior Vice President and General Manager for Cloud Volumes at NetApp, and Mr. Scott Sinclair, Senior Analyst at ESG. We're going to bring up the video now.
All right. Well, I know I'm excited to be here at the introduction of Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. As he mentioned, I'm a senior analyst with ESG, and at ESG we do a ton of research on the IT industry. And one of the things that we've really seen is, and it's almost become synonymous with the digitization of business, and that is that as data, especially file data, and the unlocking and the leveraging of file data becomes more and more closely tied to revenue creation. Businesses are generating larger and larger volumes of file data, but also at the same time, they need to accelerate operations and accelerate the leveraging of that data. And in part, that's been a huge driver of public cloud services such as Amazon and Amazon FSx, but also it's seen as not only in terms of storing files, but also in accelerating those operations. And in fact, one of the stats that we have is nearly half, 49% of IT organizations expect to accelerate their investments in public cloud file storage over the next 2 years. So now I want to, as we start getting into the questions, I want to get a little more granular and focus on really the motivations behind Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Ed, let's start with you. What were some of the things that Amazon heard from its customers that really provided the motivation for the delivery of this new service? While we wait for Ed to get activated, why don't you take that question? What were some of the things that NetApp heard?
I think what we're hearing from our customers is a true need to adopt AWS in order to extend their existing investment in the data center, in order to replace existing investment in the data center, and even more exciting than these two, in order to innovate faster. I think what I've heard from our customers directly in multiple conversation is basically, I'm looking to expand this application. It is growing too fast, but right now this application is going to be in the data center. How am I going to be able to do that leveraging cloud? And I think there is a lot of magic that could actually happen and could actually empower a customer to keep the core application on premises, but why wouldn't you use backup and DR in the cloud? And why wouldn't you actually tier data into the cloud and make it more scalable? Migration is definitely key, top of mind for a lot of the customers. They're looking for specific workloads in a specific time frame to move into the cloud. FSx in our mind is an ideal enabler of doing that. It actually simplifies this process very significantly. And I think, as I said earlier, last but not least important, innovate. They're looking to innovate and innovate fast. Whatever you can give it to them and give it to them as a service is actually welcome. And bringing the best shared storage OS as a service into AWS just allow you to innovate much, much faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can people hear me now?
That makes a ton of sense. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Hear you
all right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did you
sorry
hear,
about
did you hear my question early on? Just want
I,
to
I did.
see it.
I started answering it, but
Okay.
only I could hear it. So,
All right. Well, go ahead. Why don't we go back to you?
all right. Well, so for what I started saying was, first of all, thanks for having me and having Ronan on to talk. And I really like this question because your question was framed about what did we hear from customers. And that's how we are continually thinking about the new services that we build and the new capabilities that we launch. It really starts with listening to the customer. And it was no different with this service. Like you pointed out, Scott, customers of all sizes are migrating their on-prem applications to AWS to increase agility, accelerate innovation, improve security, reduce costs. And what customers were telling us is that they want to move these applications to the cloud even faster than they have been able to. And so, that was kind of the starting point of this. Many of those applications that are running on-prem that customers want to move to the cloud as fast as possible store the data that they rely on a NAS appliance. And so they're giving multiple compute resources and multiple users access to the same set of data, to a shared set of data. And these NAS appliances, many of them powered by ONTAP, provide storage and data management features that make it really easy to manage applications and workloads. And we know that application administrators, they depend on these NAS appliances to provide features that make it easy to support their applications. So features like multi-protocol access to network file shares, point-in-time snapshots for data protection, data replication, data cloning for redundancy. And storage administrators, they typically manage NAS deployments for multiple users and groups. They rely on standardized tools and workflows and processes for managing that file storage. And a lot of those are built around ONTAP's administrative capabilities and around ONTAP's APIs. So before the service launched, if customers wanted to migrate those NAS-based applications to the cloud, they often would need to forego a number of the NAS data management capabilities that they're familiar with. And in many cases, they would actually need to re-architect their applications and their tools and their workflows. And that just takes time, right? It takes time, it takes effort. And so we launched this service to solve that problem. It provides the first complete, fully managed NetApp ONTAP file system in the cloud. It gives customers a super easy, really fast path for migrating their NAS-based applications. And that's because they get a solution that has the full features and works and feels like the NAS that they get on-prem, but it's fully managed and it's in the cloud.
And, that actually leads me to my next question, because, one of the things that I wanted to touch on was shift from motivation to some of the key challenges. And one of the biggest challenges that we see in our research among IT organizations is all around portability, whether it's the application, whether it's the data. Part of this mass migration of organizations looking to leverage or increase their adoption of AWS, for example, is complexities around portability. For example, our research shows 65% of IT organizations identify significant challenges with data and application portability. I think both of you guys touched on some of this a little bit, but Ronan, let's start with you. Maybe provide a little bit more guidance or insight into some of the ways that Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP is helping address the challenges of portability, especially for organizations that maybe have a very large data center footprint.
First, I think it's an excellent question, and I want to kind of repeat it. We are hearing the same thing, that this is the time to migrate. This is the time to accelerate migration. Ed said it. I'm glad you are saying it. I'll repeat it as well. But just like you said, it's not always simple. And part of the complexity was, can I actually get I think the complexity I'll break into two parts. The first one is, can I actually get the needed performance, whether it is throughput, whether it is latency, can I actually get these set of capabilities that are needed for my application to run just as good or maybe even better in the cloud? And the second part is, how easy it is for me to migrate, to move from point A to point B. I do believe that Fsx for NetApp ONTAP is actually answering both of them in almost an ideal way. If I look at it from the first challenge, which is basically, can I actually get my application requirements for performance, latency, throughput, etc.? You actually get the entire goodness of ONTAP. So you're getting it in a complete way with a lot of these capabilities. I think when it comes to the second part, because it is a fully managed ONTAP, then everything you invested in automation, in toolings around it, etc., is actually possible, not possible, but actually easy to use in the same way as you were using inside your data center. This is sometimes very important and underestimated, because moving the data is usually the easier part. It's not always easy, but it's definitely the easier part. Moving the entire surrounding environment, the automation, the things that you learn to count on is usually where it's harder. So the compatibility is actually giving you that ability to move not just the data, but actually the entire automation and things that have actually made you comfort, that gave you comfort with your current environment into the cloud. While I put these two as critical, I do want to say that the cost is also usually a consideration, right? It's not a blocker, but a consideration. The fact that Fsx for NetApp ONTAP is carrying with it the entire efficiency that is coming with ONTAP is very, very helpful. So you can count on the fact that in the cloud you're carrying with you the entire efficiency that you have.
Yeah, I really like how you broke that down, Ronan, because it's more than just moving the data from point A to point B. There's a lot more to it. But Ed, I want to give you a chance to answer the same question. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say was, building on what Ronan was saying, our goal was offering the full and the complete ONTAP experience and the full capabilities as a managed service. And it's important to do that because it means that this thing, as Ronan was saying, works for the broad set of applications and the broad set of workloads that customers want to move to the cloud, not a narrow set of applications. So really, the goal here, what we designed for, was no exceptions. A customer can run their file system on FSx in exactly the same way, with exactly the same capabilities, and as good as, if not better, performance than on-prem, with as good as, if not better, TCO than on-prem, on the cloud, fully managed. And so, I mean, let me dig in a little bit and give some examples of things that we have that are important that we've enabled to make this a reality. So the first is we provide the full ONTAP CLI and API support. So what that means is customers can use their existing scripts and their NetApp management tools to set up, configure, and manage FSx. So in terms of how they manage and the scripting they have, etc., all of that just works. We have full Snap support. So Snap Mirror and Snap Vault, those are flagship NetApp features. They make it quicker and easier for customers to do things like migrate to the cloud and set up and operate cross-region replication, use the cloud as a backup or DR site for on-prem data. I know that was one of, for example, the top use cases that people in the poll said that they were looking to use this for. The storage efficiencies that Ronan was talking about, we know that 80% of data is generally cold, and FSx is a cost-compelling solution even for these colder data sets because we have a capacity pool storage option. We also support compression and dedupe and compaction, all of these things that customers are used to in how they manage their data at scale, you get with this service. We also have support for things like auditing and antivirus capabilities. So you get things like NetApp's F-policy to configure file access auditing and filtering. There's vScan support for virus scanning. And we have fully featured storage for database workloads. Database admins commonly use NetApp FlexClone to create writable inline snapshots of their data. Their standard operating practice is to test any database changes on a clone of their production database before they execute the changes against the actual production copy. So all of those kind of workflows around database workloads as well are supported. So really it was giving the full breadth so that it's a no exceptions migration path or extension path from on-prem for customers.
Yeah, and I love
Scott,
that
if I may
because
add
again,
one.
it's not just, oh, go on. What was that, Ronan?
Yes, Scott, I wanted to add one more thing. I think both companies have done really a very detailed work to see that we're not just moving the service and the capabilities in a complete way, but actually the entire ecosystem. So for for the NetApp folks out there, then this is coming out of the box, certified and fully working with Cloud Insight, with Spot, with the entire backup capabilities, with our entire data sense capabilities, etc. You can enter it from Cloud Manager. It really is bringing the entire ecosystem with it, again, for the benefit of very simple and easy migration.
Yeah. Ronan, I don't think I could have said it better. Because it is that ecosystem people want to move. It's not just the data, it's not just the app, it's everything surrounding it. And that's all about simplifying that migration process. I want to shift a little bit and switch gears. We talked a ton about the value that Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP offers for existing apps that you might migrate. But what about net new application development? We see a tremendous amount of new application development, the rise of modern DevOps activities, especially around container-based application environments. What are some of the benefits that Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP offers for those for new development on AWS? Ed, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. What we're really excited about is we also have designed the service to be really useful for those brand new, net new modern applications on the cloud. So really useful even for DevOps folks and application builders that traditionally haven't maybe used network attached storage. And so why is it useful? Well, first of all, it provides high performance, really high performance shared storage that's accessible from Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. It has a lot of capabilities that allow developers to build rich experiences for those operating systems quickly. And it has capabilities like manipulating data at scale and instantly snapshotting and cloning data sets regardless of their size. There's features like dynamic quality of service controls to ensure a really consistent experience for multi-tenanted SaaS applications. We integrate with our rich set of container services on AWS. So really this is about providing all of ONTAP's capabilities, even for those modern applications, and we package it in a fully managed service. So as a application developer or as a DevOps person, you don't need to understand how NAS storage works. You don't need to configure it. You don't need to know any of those details. You just know that you have really fast, feature-rich storage that works across a bunch of operating systems and has a lot of capabilities for building applications at scale.
And that makes a ton of sense given AWS's focus on builders and that you guys have had for a long time. Ronan, let me turn it back to you. Anything you'd like to add on how this solution is helping application development?
I think shared storage have a place for applications developers. I myself have before my NetApp career had a clear need for shared storage for increased performance. What we have made, and I think this is where this service is really great, is we made it accessible in the smaller chunks possible. We're actually making a major effort in making it in basically making it priced right for the developers to start small and grow as their application as their application is growing. And I think above all, the fact that it's a native service integrate to everything else they're building is really giving them an optimized experience. I do want to kind of use your question to touch one more audience, and I think especially ISVs, they should be looking into this service as a foundation for how they are delivering their new applications. I think especially ISVs that work in scale and actually have the need for performance, a huge amount of users, etc. This might be the best solution they can find.
Great insight. And talking about we've hit on a lot of the benefits, and I just want to reference some ESG research that really backs that up. When we ask organizations in terms of and cloud users on the benefits that their organization has realized from leveraging public cloud services. I mean, there's a big list, but kind of, if I'm going to cherry pick a couple, one is, 40% of organizations said they've realized greater agility within their organization from the usage of public cloud services such as Amazon FSx for ONTAP. We also see 38% have been able to accelerate operations. So checking my notes there, making sure I got the stat right. I've been able to accelerate operations because of their adoption. You know, Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP plays right into these at a macro level, but I want to make it a little bit more granular and maybe start, you know, with you, Ed. If you're talking to one of your potential customers and they come to you, give them, or pretend I'm one of your potential customers, give me the elevator pitch on how Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP is going to make my business better.
Yeah, fortunately, we have a really simple elevator pitch. It makes it so much faster and easier to move your applications or extend your applications to the cloud, to get all the benefits of them running in the cloud, like increased agility and accelerated innovation and improved security. And they get the complete NetApp they're used to and have built their applications and tools and workflows around, but they get it on the cloud and fully managed. And what that means is you can move faster. You can move and extend much faster.
That was great. Ronan, I'm going to turn it over to you. Feel free to copy Ed's answer, but you can also submit your own.
I think Ed's answer was fabulous, and it was short and to the point about extending and migrating application. I just want to add maybe one point. This is actually a great value, not just for the NetApp customers out there, but actually for anybody that want to migrate application to the cloud and thought it was not possible. If I need to put some of it in a simple sentence, now you can get the full capabilities of the best storage OS as a service, and that actually empowers you. It actually empowers you to move any application that you had on premises, no matter what it ran onto, now to run on AWS. I think that's a big things, and the value is as you said, in the agility that is coming with it, in the cost saving, and I think also in the ability to innovate faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answers. This has been wonderful. You guys have answered all my questions, but now I want to turn it back to the audience and see if we have any questions that they'd like to ask our panel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great discussion. Really enjoyed that. I learned a lot. We do have some questions coming in for the audience, from the audience. The first one I wanted to ask here, they're saying, I'm mandated to get out of my data center by the end of the year. What's a quick win workload that I can migrate first? Ed, any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of actually quick win, quick migration workloads, and what I would say is actually there's not a specific workload. We're seeing everything from analytics type workloads. We're seeing database workloads. We're seeing content management systems, user shares. I really wish I could tell you like there's this one that's like the one that you can just move really fast. But we really designed this to be able to move fast across a broad set of these. And so I would say instead of like saying what can this technology enable me to move quickly, what do you want to move quickly, and start there, because we've designed this to be able to help you move any workload fast.
Excellent. Ronan, any thoughts on that?
I just want to say that we are here to help. So your NetApp team is definitely here to help you with the migration. If your deadline is really the end of the year, like let's actually talk tomorrow. As Ed was saying, we're not limited in what workloads we can move. It is really up to the business priority in what do you want to move first. And I do want to emphasize, like, we are here to help. This is I'm sure there are others in the audience that they have a mandate and they have a timeline. We're here to help you in this. This is the right technology to do it with.
Excellent. Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for our live Q&A. There's a lot more electronic Q&A coming in. I know the NetApp and AWS team are responding to those as quickly as possible, but I want to thank our excellent panelists here, Scott, Ed, and Ronan. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, and thanks to everyone for attending.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. So with that, let's go ahead and move on now to our next presentation here on the event today. We're going to go ahead and bring in now our next presenters. Welcome Mr. Keith Townsend, CEO and founder of the CTO Advisor, Adrian DeLuca, Head of Partner Solutions Architecture at AWS, and Nick Howell, Global Field CTO for Public Cloud Services at NetApp.
Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend, principal of the CTO Advisor. You are joining the CTO Advisor road trip in Seattle. We're talking about data in the public cloud and this idea of, I think, solving a gap that's been in the industry, specifically in the AWS product offering when it comes to managing data that was on premises that now needs to be placed in the public cloud and taking advantage of many of the public cloud services that AWS has. This video is sponsored by NetApp. We have with us Nick Howell from NetApp, Adrian DeLuca from AWS. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Keith. Nice to be here.
All right, Nick, we're going to start with you first.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the obvious question. Why build this? Like, what is the problem?
As we've been building the cloud portfolio at NetApp for a few years now, one of the things that we found is that our beloved install base has had problems with data gravity. They find it, they love AWS, they love working in AWS, but the enterprise applications, multi-tier apps that they want to take up there also come with a very big anchor called data. And those can oftentimes be hundreds of terabytes, if not petabytes in size, and it's hard to move that around just to say you want to do some QA on it real quick and then shut it all down, right? So the idea is to put ONTAP in the place where they want to work and leverage all of the efficiencies that come with using ONTAP in a native experience.
So I want to hit Adrian on this concept of native. I know all of the native AWS storage services. How does this fit in that portfolio of services?
Well, it's not just a managed experience of NetApp ONTAP on cloud. It is a fully integrated experience as well. So what that means is that you're benefiting from the full gamut, the entire portfolio of data protection services, data management services that come with NetApp, and utilizing the AWS underlying infrastructure. So it's using the AWS compute, networking, and storage services. It's leveraging also all of the security and management that a lot of our customers know and love.
So I'm just going to throw like I know enough about the AWS architecture to be dangerous. So I can assign an IAM role to this service or integrate this service into my IAM roles.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the governance and control and the granularity that you would get with any other AWS service, you get the same with NetApp. I think it's really important to make it clear that this is running in your customer or our customer's VPC environment. So you get the benefits of using things like CloudTrail and CloudWatch the same way that you would in any other service. You use key management service for encryption, for example. So it is really that complete integrated experience.
Wait, hold on, Nick. I had it. This is a new one to me. Okay. So I understand key management service. One is actually one of the most if there's an undersold service, key management service, the ability to manage my keys. So I can encrypt data on my ONTAP provided NFS stores using my AWS KMS keys.
I don't need to add any more. You just nailed it.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get this. With that said, let's talk about some practicals, because I think there's going to be a lot of naysayers out here. First off, Nick, if I'm a traditional ONTAP administrator and I'm thinking cloud native APIs, all this stuff that I just don't know yet. My task is replicating data from site A to site B. I go into my ONTAP GUI. I know how to use it. I do it. Is that experience still there?
Yes. For the ONTAP administrators, it is going to be a very similar experience, say to you accessing a secondary array that might be living in your secondary data center. Look at AWS, or the instance of Fsx for NetApp ONTAP is going to be the same kind of experience. You manage it with your tools that you're used to, or you can directly access it from the AWS CLI or console.
All right, what if I want to replicate data as I'm doing my data migration? I want to replicate data from my private data center to the public cloud.
Absolutely. SnapMirror fully supported. Many of our Flex and Snap words that our install base know and love are all supported. You're going to see the ability to do fan out and cascade configurations for SnapMirror are all supported. So if you wanted to landed in FSX for NetApp ONTAP and then maybe cascaded out to a bunker site for whatever reason. All of those configuration options that we've been doing for decades on NetApp arrays are still available. And that's really the way for infrastructure architects to look at FSX for NetApp ONTAP, is it's an extension of your NetApp infrastructure.
So as I take off my Keith Townsend 33 decades of enterprise IT experience. So that's how I would naturally want to do that, Adrian. Yeah. However, there's a new generation of folks out there doing things via these tools that allow them to do things at scale. If I wanted to run ONTAP in one AWS region and ONTAP in another AWS region and use this native capability, do I then have to kind of exit my world that I know in order to perform that simple task?
Well, Keith, I've got the privilege of working literally with hundreds of customers that are doing this migration. They're bringing their traditional applications into the cloud. They're all in. But we've done this thousands of times. And what we continue to see, if you want to get not just the cost benefits and the efficiency benefits of the clouds, you've got to get the productivity benefits. And how a lot of customers are realizing this today, whether you come from the old world or the new world, is you bind that together through automation, infrastructure as code. So the fact that you can take the service that you know and love, or the operating system and all its features and capabilities, and embed that as infrastructure as code in a CloudFormation script or a Terraform script, means that you're bringing all of the same sort of benefits to those traditional environments as you would for your modern applications.
So let's test this all the way to the modern application, the traditional cloud native application in the cloud native container Kubernetes based sense. If I want to provision and attach a persistent storage volume to a pod, is that supported in this solution? Either one of you guys can take that.
100%. I mean, we could just high five across from each other. Yes. And just simply go that. No, to get into more of the details, we've had the Trident plugin, the open source plugin, is now completely conformant with the CSI spec from the Kubernetes world. So all of that still works in any form of ONTAP, whether it's FSX for NetApp ONTAP or whether it's a physical array you have on-prem. Trident, it's irrelevant to Trident, if I'm being frank. So at the end of the day, yes, we can provision CSI PVCs. Those can come either from infrastructure as code, such as CloudFormation templates. Hell, if you've got some YAML, you could throw that in there, right?
my favorite word.
So you could totally do that. At the end of the day, though, we're going to see a lot of people begin to move data sets from on-prem up to the cloud as a first step, and then they're going to discover how they can take advantage of either native NetApp or native AWS services or some of the other features and functionality that ONTAP brings to the table that they may not have known about before.
And that's right, Nick. I mean, the benefit of it being a native service in the AWS environment means that you can connect it to EC2, you can connect it to the container services, and you can even expose those multi-protocol shares to Amazon Workspaces or AppStream. So it really is an environment that is completely bound together.
So if I'm migrating to my VDI and I have this used data set, I have workspaces for my VDI that connects to ONTAP, so I'm using this in this traditional way, and as I start to migrate my applications and replatform my applications, the data's there, and I can just cycle the services around that data.
And identity management, right? So if you're running Active Directory for your users, you can literally join those Active Directory domains natively inside the environment.
Well, I told you, I know enough about AWS to be dangerous, but I'm sure I've missed some basic questions that you'd like to know more about. If you want to know more, first spot is to go down and click the link associated with this video. If you want to learn more about the CTO Advisor, you can follow us on the web, thectoadvisor.com/road-trip to learn about where we've gone and where we'll be if you haven't followed the road trip. If you have feedback directly from me, there's questions you want me to ask these two, you want me to email them and say, hey, you know what, Sarah from Chicago had a really interesting question. You can DM me on Twitter at CTO Advisor. DMs are open. Talk to you next CTO Dose.
All right, that was a lot of fun. I enjoy always seeing CTO advisor interviews, and I learned a lot from that one as well. Keith always asked some really great questions, just like he did on there. I'm going to bring back in Scott Delow now, and we're going to chat here for just a moment while I launch this poll. The poll on the screen for everyone out there, I encourage you to respond to, is where do you need more support? And you might need more support across, multiple areas. So this is a multi-select question. We want to get your feedback on this. Scott, I'm curious, what did you learn from that video? What did you take away?
It's, I think, reinforcing a lot of what we've heard so far today from Andy Krudge to Keith Townsend and to the panel, which is the sheer flexibility that organizations are going to enjoy with FSx for NetApp ONTAP. There's, and as we mentioned in the last sort of mini Q&A segment with me, for both current customers and new customers, the possibilities are really kind of endless. This is definitely, bringing together really more traditional look with the new world, which we can't just abandon everything we've already done. And I think that one of the key things here is that we're not having to do that anymore. We're not having to make those calculations as to when can I abandon what I've already done to move to the new stuff. What this is allowing us to do is truly enable a hybrid scenario in a way that we couldn't do before.
Yeah, I like that because I'm sure there's a lot of, NetApp NAS admins out there who have been doing this for many, many years and would be a little scared at the idea of, moving their beloved storage, into the cloud. And so what you said right there kind of, I think, would give them some peace to know that they're not going to lose whatever, they've known and loved for so many years. This is just going to make it better.
Absolutely. And, one of the things, early on when cloud was a new thing, which is obviously not anymore, but it's, still something people are trying to wrap their heads around, was just the potential that it still has for a lot of organizations. There was a lot of concern around, and I talked to people that they were basically worried for their jobs. And storage admins were no exception. And as we've moved more and more applications to the cloud, fortunately, we've seen IT pros keep up. We've done it in a way that they can learn cloud constructs, learn how to manage those services, and then move. But we still have all of these applications, all of these workflows that organizations have built over sometimes decades, that the effort that would be required to refactor those applications is incredible. And that's not something a lot of places want to undertake. So again, for organizations that have selected NetApp for on-premises workloads especially, there's significant potential here to be able to move those stubborn sort of, as Nick Howell put it, data gravity-laden applications to the cloud now in a way that we couldn't do before.
Well said. Well said. Well, I think that's all the time we have here in our discussion with our audience questions and some great points. Let's go ahead and move on now and announce the winner of our next Amazon $300 gift card. This is going out to Paul Lade from Maryland. Congratulations. Don't forget, we still have 2 more gift cards still to give out on the event today and an Amazon $500 service credit. So make sure that you stay tuned for that and more excellent presentations here on the new Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. Speaking of which, I'm excited now to bring in our next presenter. Welcome, Oded Berman, Cloud Evangelist at NetApp. Oded, take it away.
Welcome to Cloud Manager, a centralized API-driven control plane to manage your data across the hybrid cloud. With Cloud Manager, you can manage any ONTAP-based storage solutions such as Cloud Volumes ONTAP, On-Premises ONTAP, and Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP, along with advanced data services, providing an integrated and unified experience of NetApp's Cloud Volumes platform. Although you can deploy and manage FSx for ONTAP with the native AWS management tools, Cloud Manager unlocks additional features and capabilities complementing these tools. Let's see what Cloud Manager can do for Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. We'll start with create a new FSx for ONTAP file system by clicking on Add Working Environment, selecting AWS, Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP, and click on Next. Then we would provide proper FSx for ONTAP credentials by either creating new credentials or selecting an existing one. On the Details and Credentials page, we'll provide a name for our new file system and provide the default administrative account named Fsx Admin with a password. The Fsx Admin can later on be used to access ONTAP's CLI and API. On the Region and VPC page, we'll select the AWS region in which we'd like our file system to be created in. We'll select the proper VPC to be attached to and the proper security group. Since Fsx for ONTAP is deployed in a multi-AZ configuration, we'll select for each of the nodes an availability zone and a subnet. Next, you can specify the IP address range in which the endpoints to access your file system will be created. Then, we select the route tables that should include routes to the data access IP addresses. Encryption keys are managed by AWS KMS. Here, we will select the encryption key to use that could be either the default master key or a key from our account or a different one. On the storage configuration page, we select the performance and capacity properties. We'll specify the throughput level we'd like our file system to serve data from the available SKUs. Optionally, additional SSD IOPS can be configured, and then the SSD-based primary tier storage capacity that can be anywhere between 1 TB to 192 TB. It's important to note that together with an inexpensive, virtually unlimited capacity pool tier, the overall storage space can scale to petabytes of capacity. Then we'll review our configuration and click on Add to create our new Fsx for ONTAP file system. It takes around 25 minutes for the operation to complete, but since it is a demo environment, our Fsx for ONTAP file system was created in no time. If you have already created Fsx for ONTAP file systems through the native AWS management tools and you'd like them to be added to Cloud Manager, you can simply go once again to Add Working Environment, click on AWS, select Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, and then click here. Provide the proper Fsx for ONTAP credentials, select the region of where you've created your file systems, and then from the list of file systems, select the file system you'd like to add to Cloud Manager. And then, a few moments later, your Fsx for ONTAP file system is added to Cloud Manager canvas. If we'll click on an Fsx for ONTAP file system, on the opened right panel, we will be able to see the list of services that can be integrated with it, and on the top right, we can see an information button and an actions button. If we'll click on the information button, we'll be able to see file system information such as an ID, such as a management IP, and the AWS account it was created in. If we'll click on the ellipsis, we'll be able to get a list of a few actions that can be performed from here. One of the most common operations you would perform with any ONTAP-based system is creating a new volume. We can create a new volume straight through the ellipsis or go to the bottom and click on Enter Working Environment. On the File Systems Overview page, we could see some information about the capacity distribution, the volumes, and the data replication relationships, including some additional information. Let's click on View Volumes to create a new volume. So currently there are none. Let's click on Add Volume to create a new Fsx for ONTAP volume. On the Volume Details and Protection, we'll provide our volume with a name. We'll provide our volume with a size. And Fsx for ONTAP volume can be anywhere between 20 megabytes to 100 tebibytes. Then we can associate a snapshot policy, which will determine how frequent NetApp snapshots are created and their retention. Next, we'll specify the volumes protocol. Fsx for ONTAP supports NFS, SMB, and iSCSI. With our current setup, we can only specify NFS. So first, we'll specify the access control policy. Then we'll specify the CIDR range, or a list of clients that can access. And then we'll select the NFS version we'd like to enable. On the usage profile and tiering policy page, we'll specify whether we'd like ONTAP storage efficiencies to be enabled or not. In addition, we'll specify what would be the tiering policy to use to move infrequently accessed data from the primary tier into the infrequent access tier. We'll review our configuration and click on Add to create the volume. Once our volume was created, we can see some basic information on it. If we'd like to see more information or perform some actions on that volume, we can click the ellipsis. Let's walk through some of the operations available. Other than changing the tiering policy or copying the mount command, which later on can be pasted into our client to mount the volume, we can, for instance, go ahead and create a snapshot copy. By clicking on Create a Snapshot Copy, we'll provide our snapshot copy with a name and click on Create. What we've just created is a NetApp snapshot. Snapshots are mainly used for recovery purposes. One of the ways to recover data from snapshot is to perform a restore from snapshot copy. A restore from a snapshot copy restores the entire volume instantly into a new volume. All we have to do is select the snapshot that we'd like to recover from and provide our volume with a name. Regardless of the volume size, the recovery is instant. Another operation that we can perform through Cloud Manager is cloning. Through cloning, you can instantly create thin clones for accelerating your dev test environment or testing your disaster recovery environment. All you have to do is provide your clone with a name and hit clone. A couple of moments later, a new volume appears. Now let's go back to the canvas and see some further operations. Through Cloud Manager, you can easily replicate data between ONTAP-based systems leveraging ONTAP's SnapMirror replication engine. SnapMirror can be used for a wide variety of use cases such as migration, cloud-based disaster recovery, cross-region replication, and more. To use SnapMirror, all you have to do is drag and drop one working environment over the other. Next, we'll select the volumes that we'd like to replicate. Moving on, specifying whether we'd like tiering to be enabled and what tiering policy to be used. Next, I'm going to provide my destination volume with a name. I'm going to select the transfer rate and then select the replication policy. If I'm replicating for disaster recovery purposes, I'll select the mirror policy. If I'm replicating for disaster recovery and long-term retention, I can select the mirror and backup policy, and there are additional policies that are available. Next, we'll select a replication schedule that will determine our RPO. Let's go with the hourly schedule. We'll review our configuration and then click on Go. Cloud Manager automatically redirects us to the Replication tab, in which we can see all of our replication relationships and their status. By clicking on the ellipses, we can see all of the operations that can be performed on a relationship. If we'll go back to the canvas, we'll be able to see a line between our on-premises ONTAP and Fsx for ONTAP, representing the replication relationship that we've just created. So SnapMirror would be the recommended way of replicating data between two ONTAP-based systems. But what if you'd like to replicate to your Fsx for ONTAP file system data that is residing on a non-ONTAP system? In that case, we could leverage NetApp's Cloud Sync service. By clicking on our Fsx for ONTAP file system that we'd like to move data to, on the opened right panel, Cloud Sync, as you can see, was already activated. But let's create a new sync relationship to move some data from one of our S3 buckets into our Fsx for ONTAP file system. Let's click on the ellipsis and sync data to this location. As you can see on the right side, Fsx for ONTAP is defined as the destination for that sync relationship. As you can see, Cloud Sync supports a wide variety of storage solutions as source or as destination. All we have to do to specify our source is to simply drag it here. Before hitting on continue, we'll select the protocol of our Fsx for ONTAP destination. Next, we'll select the data broker. The data broker will do all the heavy lifting. It would read the data from the source and convert it to the destination format, and it would write it to Fsx for ONTAP into an NFS volume. Since we already have a bunch of data brokers configured, let's just select one and click on Continue. Next, we'll select the S3 bucket that will serve as our source. We'll select our target working environment. On the volumes table, select the volume that would serve as a target for our sync relationship. Choose the NFS version we'd like to mount our destination with. Verify that this is the correct IP address of it. Then we select the target directory. We can go ahead and drill down and select a specific directory to sync our data to. Review our relation settings and click on Continue, and then create the relationship. Now, the data broker starts reading from our selected AWS S3 bucket, converting it, and then writing it into our Fsx for ONTAP file system into the vol1 volume into the folder1 directory. At any point in time, we can click on Viewing Dashboard and see the relationship that we've just created on CloudSync's dashboard. Once we have located our sync relationship, we can see its status, whether it was completed or whether it's still in progress. We can get some information about what data was scanned and what data was copied. We can download the data broker logs, and through the ellipsis, we can perform some additional operations. So when managing Fsx for ONTAP through Cloud Manager, you can leverage NetApp's Cloud Sync and easily migrate data from any object storage or file storage solutions to your Fsx for ONTAP file system. If we'll go back to the canvas, we would see a new line connecting our Fsx for ONTAP with Amazon S3, representing the sync relationship that we've just created. The last thing I'd like to show you today is how you can scan your Fsx for ONTAP working environments to map and classify data and to identify private information. This can help you reduce security and compliance risks, decrease storage costs, and assist with your data migration projects. The way to achieve this is by activating NetApp's data governance service known as Cloud Data Sense. Simply click on your Fsx for ONTAP working environment, locate Data Sense on the opened right panel, and click on Enable. Once Cloud Data Sense is initialized, you can go into the Data Sense tab and view some governance details about the data stored within your Fsx for ONTAP file system. The governance dashboard provides information so that you can increase the efficiency and control the costs related to the data stored on your Fsx for ONTAP file systems. Cloud Data Sense identifies the amount of stale data, non-business data, duplicate data, and very large files, so you can decide whether you want to remove these or tier some of these files to less expensive object storage. And through the Compliance tab, you gain control of your private data by viewing details about the personal data and sensitive personal data. You can also gain visibility by reviewing the categories and file types that Cloud Data Sense found within your Fsx for ONTAP file system data. In addition, you can generate and view compliance reports and respond to data subject access requests. Furthermore, you can manage your private data through policies and tagging, add custom personal data identifier, and much more. By unlocking additional features and capabilities, Cloud Manager allows you to get more of your Fsx for ONTAP file system. Thank you for watching.
That was cool to see Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP in action there in a demo. So thank you, Oded, for sharing that with us. I'm excited to bring back in Scott Lowe now, and we're going to chat here about a few points that have come up from the audience. And while we do that, I'll just bring up this poll for everyone out there that says, what additional information would you like about the AWS NetApp solution? And of course, feel free to select more than one option there on that poll. So let's see, Scott, one of the questions that came in here, they were asking is, what are some of the configurable options in AWS FSx for NetApp ONTAP?
There's actually a lot of things you can configure here when you're deploying the service. Number one is, obviously capacity is configurable, but you can also, just use it on demand. And there's really two primary tiers of types of capacity in the service. We know there's a primary storage tier, which is high performance SSD, that has a lot of throughput and capabilities. Then there's that capacity pool tier where we have elastic storage with petabyte scale. The primary storage tier has a little bit in the way of limitations as far as capacity, but they're still pretty significant. But as data cools down, and the rough estimates are that at most 20% of data is quote unquote hot at any one time, that it can flow through to that capacity pool, so that you don't have to worry about using that primary storage tier for everything. And even that tiering process, though, is configurable. You don't have to use it at all. You can basically set the policy for a transition to a capacity pool to none, so that there's no tiering that's done at all. The most common way that this is going to get deployed is via an automatic option that is available as a configuration option. So this is basically where we're going to automatically transition data based on access patterns, which is really what you want in most cases. But you can also choose snapshot only and all data if you really want to be able to move it to and from, or to the capacity pool tier from the performance tier. In addition, there are some other options here, including performance as far as IOPS, or the number of operations per second that hit the storage solution. And you can, each gigabyte of SSD storage comes with a set number of IOPS for that particular gigabyte. But if you need more for an application that requires more performance, you can get those provisioned as needed. Likewise, throughput for read and write, it's different. You can configure them separately, anywhere from 512 megabytes per second up to 2 gigabytes per second. And it was talked about by others, and we saw that in the demo with ODED. We have lots of protocol support, including SMB 2.0, 2.1, 3.0, 3.1.1, NFS 3 and 4 and 4.1, as well as block storage with iSCSI. So there's a lot of things we can configure here, and there's lots more that I haven't talked about, but those are the big ones.
Yeah, very nice. A lot of configurable options there, so many different things. So that's good to know. I do want to point out to everyone out there that we will have a lengthy Q&A session at the end of all the presentations today. So, I know there's a ton of great questions coming in. We're just selecting a couple here to chat about right now, but we are queuing up the best questions for that lengthy Q&A session with our experts from AWS and NetApp. So keep all the great questions coming. If we haven't got to your question yet, likely we will be getting to it in that session. And also, I want to remind everyone about the poll. If you haven't responded there to the poll on the screen, we do want your feedback on that as well. And so another question I wanted to ask you, Scott, they want to know here, does using AWS FSx for NetApp ONTAP only make sense if you have other apps already running in the cloud?
No, I mean, I think that this is, whether you're born in the cloud and you happen to have some on-prem stuff, or whether you're born in the cloud and want to go all new, or whether you're completely on-premises and you're making your first foray into the cloud. I don't think there's really necessarily a limitation as to what you should already have in the cloud to deploy this. For organizations that are looking to start leveraging cloud in some way, shape, or form, particularly for organizations that want to start decoupling their capacity limitations that they may have with on-prem solutions, to enjoy the quote-unquote unlimited capacity of the cloud, this could be a great entry point for them. You don't already have to have other things running in order to make it work. You may have to have some footprint of basic infrastructure in the cloud to make it work, but no necessarily other high-end enterprise services.
Excellent. All right, well, that's all the time we have in this short Q&A session. Again, we've got a lengthy Q&A coming up at the end of the event today. But for now, let's go ahead and announce the winner of our next Amazon $300 gift card. And I will leave the poll up there for anyone who hasn't yet responded. This next gift card is going out to Joseph Mazafro from Virginia. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you to deliver that gift card. Still another gift card for Amazon, $300 coming up at the end of the event, as well as the $500 Amazon AWS service credit. So with that, it's now time to introduce you to our next presenter on the event today. Welcome Henry Axelrod, Partner Solutions Architect and Tech Lead at AWS. Henry, take it away.
Hello, I'm Henry Axelrod, Principal Solutions Architect specializing in storage, and today we're going to be looking at migrations with Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP. There are several options that make it easy to migrate to Fsx for ONTAP. You can either do an online or offline migration. With an online migration, you can either use SnapMirror, which is native replication for ONTAP systems, which we'll look at in more detail shortly. You can use NetApp Cloud Sync, which is a managed tool to allow file-based replication from many different non-NetApp sources. You can also use NetApp XCP, which is a NetApp command line tool that provides parallelized copies of data or standard file-based tools like Robocopy or rsync. If you are doing an offline transfer, you can utilize one of the Snow Family devices, which allow you to send data to Amazon S3 that can then be copied to Fsx for ONTAP in the AWS region. Now, let's take a quick look at how you might decide on which migration option to go with. The first decision will be if you're going to do an online or offline migration. This may be based on the size of your data, the timeline of your migration, and the amount of network bandwidth that you have available. If you're planning on doing an offline migration, then the AWS Snow Family is likely the right choice for you. If you're doing an online migration, then the next question will be if you're migrating from an existing ONTAP-based system. If so, then you can utilize SnapMirror to enable that migration. If you're coming from another type of system, you'll want to decide if you want to use a managed or GUI-based system that allows you to handle ongoing syncs, for which you can use NetApp Cloud Sync. If you don't need those features, you can use a self-managed CLI-based tool such as NetApp XCP that provides you with parallelized transfers or standard copy tools like Robocopy or rsync. For offline migrations, the AWS Snow Family offers 3 services, all of the devices that are part of the Snow Family offer both physical and logical security. The Snow Cone is designed for terabyte level transfers and can hold up to 8 terabytes of data per Snow Cone. The Snow Ball is designed for petabyte level transfers and can hold up to 80 terabytes per Snow Ball device. Finally, the Snowmobile is designed for exabyte level transfers and can hold around 100 petabytes per Snowmobile. As mentioned, with online transfers, Fsx for ONTAP makes it easy when coming from an existing on-premises NetApp ONTAP system, such as a FAS or AFF. You can set up SnapMirror, which will do block-based replication from your existing cluster to your Fsx for ONTAP file system. In order to demonstrate this, we'll do a transfer between 2 different AWS regions. Our source region will be US East 2, Ohio, where we'll have an Fsx for ONTAP file system and a client mounting a volume on that file system. We'll then have a target on US East 1, North Virginia, also with an Fsx for ONTAP file system and a client. We'll then use SnapMirror to migrate the volume from the source to the target and mount the volume on the target client. With that, let's go ahead and dive right into the demo. As you can see, I have 4 screens here that is going to represent the 4 systems we're going to be working with. First, I have the client on our source side that is going to have the file system mounted, which I'll show in a minute. Then I have the source NetApp system. Then I have the target client, which we'll use to test the mount and the target Fsx for ONTAP system. Okay, let's get started. First, let's take a look at our client on the source side. We're going to start off by looking and showing that it is on US East 2. As I mentioned, I'll be simulating on-premises by using a different region. And our target side is going to be on US East 1, which is going to be in North Virginia. So first, let's take a look and show that we do have a NetApp volume mounted here on the source side. As you can see, we have a volume mounted for Vol 1 to mount NetApp. And on the target side, we don't have anything mounted currently. Let's take a quick look at the mounted directory. And as you see, we have 2 different directories within that. One called docs. It has a single doc in there. That's going to be our important doc that has some text. And next, let's take a look at the total file count, because normally one of the things you want to account for in a migration is the file count. And as you can see here, we have a decent number of files. And we have about 200,000 files, but since SnapMirror uses block-based replication, the number of files will not impact our migration. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with the setup of SnapMirror. And the first thing that we'll want to do is create a volume on the target side. This will be at least as big as the source side and have a special type called DP for data protection, which will make it read-only. Then, once we establish that, we'll want to go into the source side and take a look at the intercluster network interfaces, because these are the ones we're going to use to connect to the cluster. So we'll do that, and we'll create a peer using those interfaces. Now, I want to specify a passphrase, and we need to remember what this passphrase is so that we can use it on the other side when we complete creating a peer. Now that we created a peer on this side, we'll go over to the source cluster. We need these network interfaces, and we'll use those to create a peer on the source side using the same passphrase that we used on the target side. And we'll just check to see that the peer is active. We'll do a cluster peer show. As you can see, the peer is available. Now that we have these clusters paired together, we'll want to peer the vServers together. To do that, we'll go back to the target side and we'll do a peer using the name of the source and target. And we'll accept that peer on the source side. We'll take a look at the status of the peer using a vServer peer show. And you can see that we are peered together with the other cluster. Now, since SnapMirror is a pull relationship, more of the configuration is done from the target side. We'll go ahead and create a snap mirror with the volume 1 from source and target. And now that we create a snap mirror, we'll need to go ahead and initialize the snap mirror. That will do the initial replication. Now, if you're going to be doing this in a real migration, you'll likely create a snap mirror schedule, but we won't need to do that in this case. As you can see, we already have an idle status and a last sync time. So the snap mirror is already completed, which was pretty quick. Now we'll go ahead and actually QS the snap mirror, which will stop any ongoing replication. There's none in this case, but it's just a good practice. And then we'll show that this is in fact QS. Now, since we want to actually utilize the snap mirror volume and make it read-write on the target to complete our migration, we'll break the snap mirror relationship. Now its snap mirror relationship is broken, we'll want to go ahead and actually melt the volume to the namespace. Now, this is different than when you're mounting it on a client, where you're actually mounting it to the volume to a directory. This is just going to be putting the volume on the namespace of your vServer so that we can export it via NFS. Now that our volume is mounted on the namespace, we'll go ahead and grab the IP address for the vServer so that we can go ahead and mount that volume onto our client. Now that we went ahead and mounted that to the mount NetApp directory, we'll just double check that is in fact mounted, which it is. All we do now is verify that our data is there where we expect it to be. We'll go to Mount NetApp, and you can see that the two directories are there like we had on the source side. And we'll just do a quick file count as we did before. And you can see we have our 200,000 files. And then we'll just check our docs folder, make sure our important file is there, which it is. And that's all there is. Our migration is now completed, and we can do whatever cleanup we want to do on the source side. Now that we looked at how easy it is to migrate your data to Fsx for ONTAP, I wanted to share some additional resources that you might find helpful. If you want to learn more about the service, please take a look at our product page as well as the FAQ. AWS also provides a calculator so you can quickly estimate your cost for using the service that lets you account for your data tiers, compression, and deduplication. If you need detailed information, check out the documentation page for Fsx for ONTAP. And if you want to get some hands-on experience, check out the Fsx for ONTAP workshop published on GitHub. This will allow you to deploy an Fsx for ONTAP environment with some clients so you can test easily. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, for that presentation. And we have our next presenter ready. We have Fatima Kamal, who is the Senior Storage Architect with AWS. Fatima, take it away.
Hi, welcome to this webinar on data protection. I am Fatima Kamal. I'm a Storage Specialist Solutions Architect here at AWS. Today, we are going to see how best to protect your data on Amazon FSx for ONTAP. SnapMirror within Fsx ONTAP lets you replicate data from a primary file system to a secondary file system across different accounts or regions within AWS or even from on-premises. It creates a replica of your primary storage for DR purposes, and that data gets mirrored at the volume level or at the block level. You can use SnapMirror when you want to set up DR site in a different account or a different region. SnapVault is also a NetApp ONTAP technology, but it is more of an archiving technology. It stores snapshot copies whether or not they currently reside in the source file system. It is very much applicable in times of audit when you need access to that historical data. You can keep monthly snapshot copies of your data for over a 20-year span, depending on your business regulatory requirements. SnapMirror retains the most recent copies of your data, and SnapVault retains the copies for a longer period of time. Fsx Backup is built in and it is fully managed. You can run backups of your volumes within the Fsx file system without even having a file system provision to perform the restores. So this can be done via Fsx console or the API to create a backup of volume and have it restored onto the same file system or onto a different file system. So you do not essentially need to have something provisioned to perform the restore. This is an architecture diagram of SnapMirror between the primary file system and the secondary file system. So in order to get this set up, what you need to do is ensure that the VPCs in both these accounts are peered, right? And the routes are in place for these two file systems to communicate to each other. Once a VPC peering is complete, we move on to cluster peering. Cluster peering is where you are letting both the file systems communicate to each other using something called an intercluster IP addresses. These are provisioned when your file system gets provisioned. Once a cluster peering is completed, we move on to something called an Svm peering or a vServer peering. vServer peering is where the source vServer in the source file system and the destination vServer in the destination file system are peered. Once the vServer peering is complete, we create a SnapMirror relationship using the source vServer and the source volume and the destination vServer and the destination volume. We can also add on more parameters like the throttle. If you're running SnapMirrors at scale, you can throttle the SnapMirrors at a per stream level or at a global level using a global option for that particular file system. You can also specify parameters like schedule or retries or your tiering policy. Everything can be defined in the SnapMirror relationship that you create. Once the relationship is created, you have to initialize that relationship to initiate that baseline transfer. The first baseline transfer is going to run for a period of time depending on the amount of data you have in the source file system that needs to be replicated to the destination file system. But once that baseline transfer is completed, every subsequent transfer is incremental, and it can be automated by putting in a schedule depending on your RPO requirements. So let's say if your RPO is every 12 hours, then you can put in a schedule to ensure that your SnapMirror updates once every 12 hours and your RPO is met. So let's move on to the demo. And in this demo, I'm going to show you how to set up the SnapMirror between two different accounts and two different regions. Let's get started. We are now going to see how to set up Fsx backups of the volumes within the Fsx ONTAP file system. To do the backups of the volumes within the ONTAP file system, browse on to volumes under the Amazon Fsx console. Select the volume here and click on actions. Say create backup. You can give it a backup name. And this has started creating the backup process. So when I go into the backups, I will start seeing the user initiated backup in here. As you can see now, the backup job is completed. It took roughly 15 minutes to run a backup of 500 GB volume. Remember, these are offline backups. So even if your volume or your file system is not available, these backups will be available to you that you can restore to a different file system. So to perform a restore, click on backup name and actions and say restore backup. So what this is doing is it's going to spin up a new volume using the backup that is just created. Given the volume name and the junction path, the volume size, the storage efficiency, and the capacity pool tiering all gets pre-filled based on the parent volume configuration. Confirm. So what this is doing is it's creating a new volume. So if you go into the volumes You can see that the new volume is just getting created. You can mount this volume in order to access those files. Once the volume creation is completed, we can now mount this volume and check the contents of this volume. So let us go into the terminal session. As you can see here, the volume has a junction path active and it has a use size of 506 GB. We're going to mount this volume to check it. Here is the 507 GB that we restore that we can access through this mount point. We can perform the backups using Fsx ONTAP console or even using the API. So now let's move on to the demo of the SnapMirror. I'm now logged on to the AWS Management Console of the source account in the Oregon region, US West 1, and let's select Fsx ONTAP. This is the Fsx ONTAP console, and I already have an Fsx ONTAP file system created. This is the management endpoint IP address and the intercluster IP addresses we would be using for the cluster peering process. I do have two storage virtual machines provisioned here. One is for SMB attached to an Active Directory database, and another one exclusively for NFS. I do have some pre-existing volumes here, and I would be using one of them to demonstrate a SnapMirror setup. So let's now go on to the destination account and the destination file system. So this is my destination account in the destination region, Ohio. Let's select Fsx. And I already have an Fsx ONTAP DR file system created in here for DR purposes. And there is a storage virtual machine as well. We will be creating volumes for data protection to start the SnapMirror process. Before we get started, we need to ensure that both the VPCs are peered so we can go about with our cluster peering and the SVM peering. To get the VPCs peered on both the accounts, go into Services and VPC, and you would have to ensure that your VPCs that you're peering are from a different IP CIDR range. So here I have on my source account a default stout VPC in the 172.31.0.0/16 range. And in the destination, I am going to browse into the VPC, and this is a VPC that we'll be peering against. So to do that, select VPC peering connections, and I already have a connection paired. To create a peering connection, it's a very simple process. Given a name, select the local VPC that you want to pair with. If it is within the same account, you can leave it the default, or you can provide the account ID of the destination account. Also select the region of that particular VPC and put in the VPC ID. And this will create a peering connection. You will have to go into the source account and accept this peering connection for the peering to get established across both the VPCs. Once the peering connection is completed, you can go into the route table and ensure that there is a route for the Fsx file system IP range. So here, there is a route in place using the peering connection. I am going to test the same on the source account under route tables, go into the route table and go into the routes, and I do see a route entry for 10.0.0.0/16 using the peering connection. So once this is established, a quick check would be to run a ping test using 2 EC2 instances on both the accounts. If the ping test is successful, you are now set on the VPC peering and you can move on to the cluster peering. So to do that, we need to log into the Fsx ONTAP file system using the CLI to access the ONTAP CLI. So let's browse into the Fsx ONTAP file system, and this is on my source account. So I do have a management endpoint IP address. So this is the endpoint IP address I would be using to SSH into the Fsx admin file system. So copy this and let's start the terminal session. I am now logged into the EC2 instances in both the Oregon region and the Ohio region, which I would be using to SSH into the Fsx ONTAP file system. So using the management endpoint IP address and using the Fsx admin user account, I have now SSH'd into the file system. So to establish cluster peering between the two file systems, I need to find out the intercluster IP addresses of both the file system to complete the cluster peering command. To do that, let's do a network interface show and lists the intercluster IPs of the file system. And here are the intercluster IPs. For cluster peering, I'm using a cluster peer create command using the intercluster IPs of the destination file system for SnapMirror as an application. It will ask me to enter a passphrase. You will have to remember this passphrase to do the same thing on the destination file system. So let's do the cluster peer create on the destination file system. Once the cluster peering is completed, you can issue a cluster peer show to see if the cluster peering is established. And you can do the same thing on the source file system as well. Let's move on to the vServer peering. To complete the vServer peering, we provide in the destination vServer, the source vServer, provide in the peer cluster name. As you can see, the peer is created. So this is now in the initializing state. When I go into the source, I should be able to accept this peering request. So this is in pending. To accept this request, I would issue a vServer peer accept command, and the vServer is now peered. Once the vServer is peered and the status looks available on both the file systems, I will be creating a volume as the destination for this data protection. This is the volume create command used to create a destination volume for the SnapMirror. The type of the volume has to be DP, which stands for data protection. The size of the volume has to be the same size as the source or bigger. So once this volume is created, we will start the SnapMirror relationship between the two file systems. The SnapMirror relationship can be created by providing the source path, which is the source vServer, the source volume name, the destination vServer, the destination volume name, and the vServer of the destination file system. The throttle provided here is unlimited, but you can change this to a desired value measured in kilobytes per second. The SnapMirror relationship is now created. As you can see, it is in an uninitialized state. To perform the initial baseline transfer, we need to do a SnapMirror initialize command. To modify the schedule of this particular SnapMirror, you can modify the relationship and add in the schedule. So the SnapMirror is going to get updated based on the schedule, and that can be defined by your RPO. I have put in a schedule of hourly, which means this SnapMirror will update every hour onto my DR destination file system and keep it up to date. I'm going to break the SnapMirror to make the volume read-write, and I can mount it onto an EC2 instance to access the contents. So SnapMirror is now broken. And you can see that I do have 659 GB of data on this volume that got SnapMirrored from the source ONTAP file system to the destination ONTAP file system. We just saw how to set up SnapMirror across accounts and region between two different volumes and two different file systems. To recap everything, in today's session, we saw how to protect your data using Fsx backups for Amazon Fsx for ONTAP. We also saw how to set up SnapMirror across accounts and region to use it for data protection in your DR strategy. Thank you for attending this webinar.
Fatima, thank you for providing that demo and some more information about Amazon Fsx for NetApp ONTAP. And we are going to move into our Q&A now. We have while we are doing our Q&A, I'm going to put up a poll question. It's a critical poll question, so please make sure you ask, because this is important. Are you planning to attend reInvent 2021 live in Las Vegas this year? We'd love to know. To join me for the polling, I have Andy Crudge and Nick Howell. We heard from them earlier. And gentlemen, are you here?
How you doing, Scott? Nick Howell here. Good to be with you.
Great to have you here. Thank you for being here. So, do we also have Andy Crudge here?
Hey, this is Andy. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, yes, we can. Thank you. Sorry for I'm not sure what happened there. All right, so we have a number of questions that have come in from our audience. We want to make sure we get to them because they're good questions. First of all, thank you both for your presentations there. They were fantastic. The first question we're going to ask is, what are the options for an initial copy if we don't want to use direct link or VPN? Is Snowball the only option?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this is Andy on the Amazon side. Yeah, so I mean, there's really two options, and Henry talked about some of these earlier in his presentation about migration. There's online copy options and there's offline copy options. So yeah, in terms of online copy options, we would require that you would need to set up a VPN or direct connect connection between your existing network and AWS and your VPC in AWS where you have an FSx file system deployed. And so if there's a reason where you're not able to establish that kind of a private network, again, either a direct connect or a VPN, then yeah, offline migration options like Snowball would be the appropriate way to migrate over to the service.
Yeah, and I believe this is probably the same as the answer to the next question is the migration from on-premises to ONTAP to AWS FSx online. It sounds like there's many different ways we can get the data into AWS, correct, Nick?
Yeah, there's a way to interpret the word online as well. Does that mean non-disruptively for existing users? Does that mean in an online fashion via over the wire? So, I mean, the answer to that is, as Andy described, is yeah, if you have the connection, if the plumbing is there, there's definitely very efficient ways to move the data, parallelize it, scale it out, all of that kind of stuff. But if it is a dark site or an offline scenario like that, then yeah, you're left to, especially for that initial seed of data, you're left to your devices of how do you want to get it up there. And usually the Snow family can help take care of that.
Perfect. The next question we have, I'm going to send to you, Nick, which is, do we get a NetApp console to manage FSx?
No, but yes. I guess is that you're not gonna SSH directly into the bottom end of it. But what you do get is the traditional FSx admin console, which you could, if you wanted to draw apples to apples, it would be like dropping down to the SVM layer at the CLI. So effectively, you do get all of the things that you're accustomed to getting, with extremely few exceptions of the bottomest type of, BIOS level type of administration on a physical box. But for everything that you're going to need to manage on a day-to-day basis, whether it's CLI or API, you definitely get that through the FSx admin console.
Andy, this one I'm going to send to you. Why not use EFS versus NetApp FSx, or what is the advantage over EFS that we get from FSx for NetApp ONTAP?
Yeah, I mean, so, AWS has a number of different storage services. EFS, Elastic File System, is one of them. FSx for NetApp ONTAP is another one. One of the intersection of the two is both of them offer shared file storage over the NFS protocol. So from Linux clients that are really looking for a shared file system. EFS is really designed to be kind of a serverless, elastic, auto scale up, scale down, shared storage solution. Conversely, FSx ONTAP really is, where it shines is a lot of the features and capabilities that we talked about throughout the session today. All the snaps and the flexes and all the things built into ONTAP. And so, each service has its own kind of unique value proposition to customers. EFS, again, from the elasticity and simplicity perspective, FSx ONTAP from all of the features and unique capabilities and integrations that the service has.
Sounds good. Nick, since Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP backup solution delivers incremental block-based backups for large NAS data, is pricing and licensing based upon size or length of storage? That's the question from Ned.
Yeah, I'd almost like to throw this one over the fence at Andy, since it's technically officially their service and they handle the pricing. But from what I understand, everything pricing related is capacity based. Andy, you want to take that one in any more detail?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for backup specifically, you're charged in the U.S. regions, it's 5 cents per gigabyte per month of backup storage. And one thing to note about that is for kind of the physical amount of backup storage that you consume. So for example, if you have a data set that's 50% compressible, you can actually reduce effectively your backup costs by half, just because you can benefit from the cost savings of features like deduplication and compression with your backups. And also backups are incremental. They're block-based, they're incremental, which means that if you're taking multiple backups of the same volume, the second backup of a particular volume is going to be deduplicated relative to the first. So they're all incremental and you're only paying for kind of changes in between backups.
Perfect. To that point, Andy, there's a sort of a corollary to this. Which is FSx for NetApp ONTAP cost based on allocated storage or cost after dedupe?
Yep. So customers of FSx for ONTAP can definitely benefit from the cost savings of dedupe and compression. We talked earlier, there's kind of 2 storage tiers with the product. There's SSD storage capacity that you provision that's really high performance and optimized for the active portion of your data set. And then we also have the elastic lower cost capacity pool tier that automatically grows and shrinks. And for the SSD tier, customers pay for the capacity they provision. And for the capacity pool tier, customers pay for the storage that's used. And so in both cases, with dedupe and compression, customers can reduce their effective TCO. With SSD storage, by being able to compress your data, you can just physically fit more data in the same SSD footprint. And with capacity pool storage, if you're talking about some of the less frequently accessed data, by having your data compressed and deduplicated in capacity pool storage, there's just physically fewer bytes that need to be stored, and customers, as a result, are billed for less data. So again, both dedupe and compression end up reducing your overall TCO. And we actually have a calculator. I think it's fsxontap.calculator.aws, where you can go to actually see some of these effects in action. You can actually take a look at a typical data set and see what the total cost of ownership looks like for a given deployment based on how much of your data is hot and how dedupable and compressible your data set is as well.
We're going to have two more questions. So we have time for that. The first one is around billing again. It just moved on me. Oh, there it is. Will all costs be charged through the same AWS account that we're already using? And is this service purchased through Marketplace?
Yeah, so Fsx for NetApp ONTAP, it's a first-party native AWS service. And so just like other AWS services, it's something that you can directly go to the AWS console and start using, and you're billed directly by AWS. So it's not an AWS Marketplace solution. It's a first-party AWS service. And the account that you use to create your file system is the account that is billed for all of that file system's usage.
And our final question is a bit technical in nature, but it's very interesting. And it's, how will data tiering work with iSCSI and database workloads?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to steal that one, Andy, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
The cool thing about this is the way that ONTAP does tiering. So when you say tiering to people, they typically think about file-level tiering. You're going to take different types of files, whether it's by some sort of file attribute like age, date, or last access, or anything like that. Well, ONTAP does something pretty cool. We're actually doing tiering down at the block level within the waffle layout of ONTAP as an operating system. So we're tiering at the block level, meaning we're tiering blocks before you even realize it's a file. So at the block level, we track when it was accessed, all of that stuff. And if you need to retrieve that cold data, it's retrieved at the block level. So there's no real, you don't get that extra layer of checks and balances really of, is it a file, does it have a last access, all that stuff. We're doing that within ONTAP. So from scaling that off to a capacity tier instead of your SSD tier is all going to be handled internally by ONTAP just by turning on the service.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in this Q&A. I know we ran a little bit over time today, so I think we're going to cut things there. And thank you to you both for participating in today's presentations.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We have the winner of our final Amazon $300 gift card, and we'll be giving away a $500 Amazon service credit in just a second. The winner of our fourth gift card is David Hewitt from Pennsylvania. We will be reaching out to you after today's event with information on how to collect your winnings. And then for our grand prize, which is an Amazon $500 service credit, is David Rizzio from Minnesota. Again, we'll be reaching out to you after today's event with information on how to activate your $500 AWS service credit. As always, thank you very much to our audience for participating in today's event. Thank you to AWS and NetApp for providing the content today and for participating deeply in today's event. And thank you to all of our presenters for your great presentations today, and also a heartfelt thanks to the Actual Tech Media events team. They put a lot of time and effort into these events, and we're very proud of the work they do. Thank you to everyone, and thank you, and everyone have a great rest of your day.